Warning: important information. All video stories presented here are created solely for informational purposes. The content within these videos is intended to inform and educate viewers. Please be aware that the information provided may not be exhaustive or up-to-date. It is essential to verify any critical information from reliable sources. The creators of these videos are not responsible for any actions taken based on the content herein. Viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome to our channel, where books come alive on screen. Get ready for 5-chapter wonders that inform, captivate, and spark your imagination. Join us in this literary journey where every chapter is an adventure. Barrio Azteca, Unveiling the Gang's Dark Past, by Just Stories. Chapter 1, Origins and Emergence, The Birth of Barrio Azteca. In the gritty borderland of El Paso, Texas, where cultures collide and rivalries simmer, a gang was born that would leave an indelible mark on the region's criminal landscape. This is the story of the Barrio Azteca, a tale of desperation, camaraderie, and the pursuit of identity. In the heart of this chapter, we'll journey back to the very beginning, tracing the gang's roots to understand how and why it emerged. The year was 1986, and the streets of El Paso were a battleground for various gangs vying for control of the lucrative drug trade. Poverty, marginalization, and a lack of opportunity were widespread, pushing many young individuals into the unforgiving embrace of the criminal underworld. Amid this chaos, a group of Mexican-American inmates serving time in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice system began to coalesce. They shared a common heritage and a desire for protection in the harsh prison environment. As they bonded behind bars, this fledgling group slowly began to evolve into something more formidable than just a loose collection of inmates. They adopted the name Barrio Azteca, a nod to their Mexican roots and an assertion of identity in a world that often devalued their heritage. This marked the beginning of a transformation that would eventually lead to the emergence of a powerful and notorious gang. The turning point came when Barrio Azteca members started to establish a presence outside of prison walls. They claimed territories in the El Paso area, engaging in criminal activities that ranged from drug trafficking to extortion. The gang's tight-knit structure, marked by a strict code of conduct and fierce loyalty, allowed it to rapidly gain influence in the local underworld. They used violence as a means to protect their interests and assert dominance, creating an aura of fear that surrounded their operations. As law enforcement agencies began to take notice, the gang's criminal activities became more sophisticated and widespread. Their expansion was fueled by a deadly alliance with the notorious Juarez cartel, linking Barrio Azteca to the international drug trade. It was during this period that the gang's notoriety reached its zenith, and the streets of El Paso became synonymous with violence and crime. As the 1990s rolled on, law enforcement agencies intensified their efforts to dismantle Barrio Azteca. Raids, arrests, and prosecutions targeted the gang's leadership, disrupting its operations. Despite these setbacks, the gang adapted, proving its resilience and resourcefulness. The Texas prison system remained a breeding ground for new recruits and a stronghold for the gang's operations, but on the streets, the balance of power began to shift. Rivalries with other local gangs and increased law enforcement pressure led to internal strife within Barrio Azteca. The gang, once a formidable force, was fractured. The story of Barrio Azteca's origins and emergence is a complex narrative of social, economic, and cultural factors colliding in the borderland of El Paso. It's a tale of young men seeking identity and power in a world that often denied them both. As we delve deeper into the chapters that follow, we will uncover the gang's evolution, its impact on the community, and the ongoing efforts to combat its influence. The birth of Barrio Azteca was just the beginning of a long and tumultuous journey. Chapter 2, The Rise to Power, Gang Dynamics and Territories. In the sprawling urban landscape of El Paso, a city known for its rich cultural diversity and vibrant history, the Barrio Azteca gang was on the ascent. This chapter delves into the mechanics of this meteoric rise, exploring the intricate gang dynamics, territorial conquests, and the allure of belonging that propelled Barrio Azteca to power. As the 1990s unfolded, Barrio Azteca continued to expand its influence. The gang's hallmark was its tight-knit structure, with a clear hierarchy and a strict code of conduct. At its core, it was more than just a criminal enterprise. It provided a sense of belonging and identity to many disenfranchised individuals. The gang's territories, marked by graffiti, became synonymous with its power. The streets of El Paso were divided into fiefdoms, each controlled by a local clique of Barrio Azteca members. These territories were fiercely defended, and the gang's reputation for violence and retribution made it a formidable adversary. One pivotal moment in the gang's rise came with its alliance with the Juarez cartel. This partnership allowed Barrio Azteca to tap into the lucrative drug trade, securing a steady stream of income and further solidifying its dominance in the region. The gang's activities expanded beyond street-level crimes, encompassing drug trafficking, money laundering, and extortion on a significant scale. As Barrio Azteca's power grew, so did its conflicts with rival gangs, particularly with the Serenos and the Texas Syndicate. Turf wars erupted across the city, leading to a surge in violence that left the streets of El Paso in turmoil. The climax of this era saw the city becoming a battleground for control, with law enforcement agencies struggling to contain the chaos. The resolution to this tumultuous period came in the form of intensified law enforcement efforts. Local, state, and federal agencies joined forces to dismantle the gang's operations. Raids and arrests targeted key members, disrupting the chain of command and weakening Barrio Azteca's grip on its territories. Simultaneously, the gang faced internal strife. Rivalry between cliques, infighting, and betrayal sowed seeds of discord within its ranks. The allure of quick money and power began to wane for some members as the consequences of their actions weighed heavily on their lives. The rise to power of Barrio Azteca was marked by a dangerous combination of territorial conquest, criminal enterprise, and ruthless determination. It was a period defined by violence, as the gang fought to maintain its grip on the city's neighborhoods. But as law enforcement tightened its grip and internal divisions grew, the era of uncontested dominance began to crumble. In the chapters that follow, we will explore the consequences of this rise to power, both for the gang and the community it affected. The story of Barrio Azteca is one of resilience and adaptability, and it continues to evolve, leaving an indelible mark on the history of El Paso. Chapter 3: Criminal Enterprises, Drugs, Violence, and Extortion. In the shadowy world of the Barrio Azteca gang, criminal enterprises formed the backbone of their power and influence. This chapter delves deep into the illicit activities that fueled the gang's rise, from drug trafficking to extreme acts of violence and extortion. It's a dark and complex narrative, one that sheds light on the inner workings of this notorious organization. As Barrio Azteca solidified its presence in the borderland of El Paso, its criminal enterprises began to flourish. The gang's involvement in drug trafficking was a key source of revenue, with members controlling the flow of narcotics into the city. They operated like a well-oiled machine, transporting drugs from Mexico into the United States and distributing them through their network of dealers. Violence was a constant companion to these activities. Barrio Azteca earned a fearsome reputation for its brutality, using intimidation, torture, and murder to maintain control. Rival gangs and those who crossed them often faced swift and brutal retaliation, leaving the streets of El Paso awash with bloodshed. Extortion was another avenue through which the gang extracted wealth and power. They targeted businesses, individuals, and even fellow gang members, demanding protection money in exchange for safety. Those who refused to comply faced dire consequences, cementing Barrio Azteca's grip on the community. The climax of this chapter coincided with the gang's alliance with the Juarez cartel. This partnership allowed Barrio Azteca to expand its drug operations, not only within El Paso but also across the border into Mexico. The gang's involvement in the international drug trade elevated its criminal enterprises to unprecedented levels of profitability and danger. During this period, the gang's notoriety reached its peak. News headlines were dominated by stories of brutal violence, drug busts, and the havoc wrought by Barrio Azteca. Law enforcement agencies, both local and federal, intensified their efforts to bring the gang down, leading to high-profile arrests and convictions. The resolution to this era of criminal enterprises came as law enforcement agencies escalated their fight against Barrio Azteca. Multi-agency task forces were formed to target the gang's leadership and disrupt its drug operations. Key members were apprehended, leading to a power vacuum within the organization. Internal strife also played a role in the gang's weakening. Rival cliques vied for control, and the constant pressure from law enforcement began to take a toll on its cohesion. Members who had once been fiercely loyal now turned against each other, further fracturing the gang. The finale of this chapter marks a turning point in Barrio Azteca's criminal enterprises. While the gang's influence had spread far and wide, its grip on power began to slip. Law enforcement's relentless pursuit and internal divisions had taken a toll on the organization, forcing it to adapt and evolve. As we delve further into the subsequent chapters, we'll explore the consequences of these criminal enterprises on both the gang and the community it affected. The story of Barrio Azteca is one of transformation, from a powerful criminal force to a fractured and weakened entity. Yet, its impact on El Paso and the broader borderland region continues to resonate to this day. Chapter 4: Behind Bars, Barrio Azteca in the Prison System. In the underworld of the American prison system, the Barrio Azteca gang carved out a formidable reputation. This chapter takes you behind the cold steel bars and concrete walls, revealing the inner workings of Barrio Azteca as it navigated the treacherous terrain of incarceration. It's a story of survival, power struggles, and the unbreakable bonds formed within prison walls. For Barrio Azteca members, prison was not a deterrent, it was a training ground and a sanctuary. Incarceration often solidified their commitment to the gang, and it was within prison that they honed their criminal skills and forged alliances. The gang's presence behind bars was marked by a strict hierarchy. High-ranking members held sway, commanding respect and influence over fellow inmates. They maintained control by orchestrating drug deals, smuggling contraband, and enforcing gang rules. In prison, Barrio Azteca flourished as a criminal organization, extending its reach beyond the confines of the correctional facility. The climax of this chapter came when Barrio Azteca formed strategic alliances with other prison gangs, most notably the Texas Syndicate and the Aryan Brotherhood. These alliances allowed the gang to establish a dominant presence within the prison system, further fueling their criminal enterprises on the outside. Incarceration also provided a recruiting ground for the gang. Young inmates, often seeking protection and belonging, were susceptible to the allure of Barrio Azteca. Prison served as a fertile ground for the gang's expansion, ensuring a steady influx of new members. The resolution to Barrio Azteca's presence in the prison system was a complex interplay of law enforcement crackdowns and internal dynamics. Over the years, prison authorities intensified their efforts to disrupt gang activities within correctional facilities. High-profile arrests of gang leaders behind bars disrupted the chain of command and weakened the gang's hold. Internal conflicts also played a role in the gang's challenges within prison. Rivalries with other inmate groups, coupled with internal power struggles, created a volatile environment. Members who had once been loyal to the gang now found themselves at odds, leading to fractures within the organization. The finale of this chapter reflects a changing landscape within the prison system. Barrio Azteca's dominance began to wane as law enforcement agencies and prison authorities adapted their strategies to combat gang influence. Programs aimed at rehabilitation and reintegration offered some inmates alternatives to gang life, further eroding the gang's hold. As we move forward in this narrative, we will explore the enduring legacy of Barrio Azteca within the prison system and the lasting impact it has had on the lives of those who were incarcerated. The story of the gang's presence behind bars is one of resilience and transformation, emblematic of the larger saga of Barrio Azteca's tumultuous history. Chapter 5: Law Enforcement and the Battle Against Barrio Azteca. In the relentless pursuit of justice, law enforcement agencies in the borderland of El Paso found themselves locked in an intense and ongoing battle against the Barrio Azteca gang. This chapter explores the strategies, challenges, and triumphs of those who stood on the front lines, committed to dismantling the gang's criminal empire. The battle against Barrio Azteca began as a response to the gang's escalating violence and criminal activities. Local law enforcement agencies, state authorities, and federal agencies recognized the urgent need to confront this formidable adversary. Joint task forces were formed, bringing together resources and expertise to combat the gang's influence. One of the early challenges faced by law enforcement was the gang's secrecy and tight-knit structure. Gathering intelligence and infiltrating the gang proved to be a daunting task. However, determined investigators began to make inroads, gathering critical information about the gang's operations, leadership, and networks. The climax of the battle against Barrio Azteca came with a series of high-profile arrests and prosecutions. Key members of the gang were apprehended, dealing a significant blow to its leadership. Successful operations disrupted drug trafficking routes and weapon smuggling, cutting into the gang's illicit revenue streams. In 2008, a turning point was reached when a Barrio Azteca member, Arturo Gallegos Castrillon, was arrested and subsequently convicted for ordering the brutal attack on U.S. consulate employees and their families in Ciudad Juarez. This act of violence brought international attention to the gang's activities and spurred a coordinated effort to bring its leaders to justice. The resolution to the battle against Barrio Azteca saw a multi-pronged approach. Law enforcement agencies continued their relentless pursuit of gang members, targeting not only those involved in violent acts, but also those engaged in drug trafficking, money laundering, and extortion. Additionally, preventive efforts gained traction. Community outreach programs aimed at at-risk youth sought to divert them from gang involvement. Rehabilitation and reintegration initiatives within the prison system aimed to provide alternatives to the gang lifestyle for incarcerated members. The finale of this chapter reflects an ongoing struggle as law enforcement remains vigilant in the battle against Barrio Azteca. While key leaders have been incarcerated and the gang's power has been significantly diminished, it has not been eradicated entirely. The story of law enforcement's battle against Barrio Azteca is one of determination and adaptability. It is emblematic of the broader effort to address gang violence and organized crime in communities across the United States. Thank you for diving into the world of words with us. If you had a blast exploring this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, share the bookish love with your friends, and make sure to subscribe for more amazing 5-chapter adventures.